Hey there guys, how's it going? So, yeah, basically long story short, I'm on my way to a hospital appointment, and since it's going to take me a little while to get there, and not only that, I've got a bit of time to wait anyway, so I can take my time, because my appointment's not for about an hour. Figured I'd drop a quick video, talk about some boxing. So, yeah. Let's talk about the upcoming Josh Taylor versus Jack Catterall fight, which has apparently been agreed to and signed. I don't know if the fight is officially confirmed, but all reports that I've read seem to indicate that the fight is taking place. And it's also apparently going to be in the Hydro, which, as long-time viewers of mine know, is literally just up the road from me. You can see it from my window. So, yeah, probably be going to it if we can get tickets. We'll see. So yeah, let's talk about this fight. This fight intrigues me. It's an interesting one, and it's one that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. And again, you guys that have been sub to me for a decent amount of time will know that. But yeah, basically it's a fight that it intrigues me for a couple of reasons. Now, if you look at these two guys, one of the things that you'll notice is just a complete contrast between them is the way that they were both brought up and the way that they were managed, essentially, in the early part of their careers. Josh Taylor, of course, is one of these fighters who, like Lomachenko and Usyk and several others, was basically thrown in at the deep end. He was on the fast track. As soon as he turned pro, they really tested him. They put him in with vastly more experienced guys. They gave him several big risks. Took on the likes of Dave Ryan, O'Hara Davis, even former world champions such as Miguel Vasquez and Victor Postal, and it was a big gamble, but the reason they did it was, of course, because they really believed in him and his ability, and they wanted to test him, see what he was made of. And the gamble doesn't always pay off, but that time it did, because of course he gained valuable experience from those fights and gained a lot of confidence from those fights, which led to him, of course, going on to become world champion and undisputed champion. Now he's about to defend his undisputed title for the first time. Whereas Jack Catterall, on the other hand, he came up the complete opposite route, essentially. You know, he took the traditional route that a British prospect tends to take. You know, he started at journeyman level, went on to sort of area level, English level, British level, European level, won a bunch of intercontinental titles, you know, gradually increased his opposition, gradually increased the stakes, basically, fighting for more minor to major titles, took on the likes of Tyrone McKenna and some of his domestic rivals. And yeah, he's at the point where he's now peaked, and he's now ready to fight for a world title, which is great news, because obviously it's whenever you get two British fighters fighting for a world title, I mean, that's always big bucks in the UK. It always presents a lot of excitement. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Another thing that intrigues me about the fight, and again it's another kind of contrast, is Jack Catterall is very different, both in his temperament and his style, to Josh Taylor's more recent opponents. Now, if you look at Ramirez, who of course was Josh's last fight, where he won the undisputed title, Ramirez is a guy who is a pressure fighter. You know, he's your typical come-forward Mexican with a good chin, good power, good durability. He's persistent. He really winds up on his punches, he works the body, and he's a front foot heavy brawler, essentially. And that's of course very different to Jack Catterall. If you guys have ever watched Jack Catterall, and he's a guy who I've watched many times over the years, he's a guy who does a little bit of everything. He's very versatile. Some fights he'll be very aggressive, and he'll come forward and try to get on the inside and work the body. If you look at, for example, his fight against Tyrone McKenna, who was of course a tall, rangy southpaw, but one who's very defensively limited and easy to hit. If you look at that fight, Catterall was very aggressive. He dropped him early. He really put it on him and gave him a beating. And after the fight, I believe Tyrone McKenna said that Catterall's power was underrated, that he was one of the biggest punchers he fought. So clearly, Jack Catterall, when he wants to, when he needs to, more should I say, he can be aggressive and he can punch a bit. But there's also other instances, like for example when he fought O'Hara Davis, which some would say is probably his toughest fight. I happen to disagree. I don't think it was a tough fight, but when he fought O'Hara Davis, he sat on the back foot all night and was just on the counter, and yeah, he basically was just waiting and waiting and waiting and not really committing to anything, and every time O'Hara tried to do something, he would counter. And basically O'Hara made Catterall wary, because I think Catterall knew that the way that O'Hara fights, being so rangy and awkward, he's a guy who gets you to overcommit and then walks you into like a ramrod jab or a big right. So Catterall understood that, and he knew, he was like, I'm not going to play this guy's game and just stay cautious and don't commit, and you can beat him because he's not really that good a boxer. Whereas Catterall, he is a pretty good boxer, good amateur background, good fundamentals, and I thought it was a pretty easy one, to be honest. Even though it was boring, wasn't really interesting, it was an easy one to score as far as I'm concerned, and he won it pretty clearly. And yeah, he showed a bit of versatility in those fights, because like I said, he's aggressive when he needs to be, and he sits on the back foot when he needs to. And to me, he's very different to someone like Ramirez. I mean, that would have been an interesting fight actually, Catterall against Ramirez. I don't know who I'd favour. I think Ramirez is definitely a bigger puncher, although Catterall can punch. Ramirez is a bigger puncher and maybe is a little bit more proven. He's proven his toughness and proven his power at world level. But Catterall, you never know, he looks pretty good so far, and again, he's undefeated, and domestically he's done pretty well. He's done pretty well at sort of intercontinental and European level, so you never know. But as far as I'm concerned, he's a fighter who has proven enough to let me know that he's very, very different. You know, he's a very different challenge. Because I think against Josh Taylor, because if you look at how Josh Taylor fought when he fought Davis, for example, in comparison to how Catterall fought, Josh Taylor went right at Davis. He got on the inside. He wasn't intimidated at all by Davis's power or Davis's reputation of being a guy who baits you and draws you in. Instead, he stood right in front of Davis. He was able to pivot and fight on a swivel, and he was able to slip underneath Davis's punches and land combinations of his own, mostly hooks and uppercuts to both head and body. And he completely ran over and ran through Davis and demolished him, which is of course the complete opposite of what Catterall did. He sat on the back foot and looked to just outpoint Davis on the counter. So that shows you the difference in kind of the temperament of both guys, and the difference in temperament between Catterall and Taylor's most recent opponents. If you look at the other guys that Taylor fought, like I already mentioned Ramirez, you look at Kong Song, who was quite aggressive and a little bit reckless, and if you look at Prograis, who of course is a little bit more versatile. I guess that there's some similarities to Catterall there, because Prograis is of course a southpaw like Catterall and has good power and is quick. He's definitely a lot more powerful and again a lot more proven at world level than Catterall is. But there's a few things to look at there. If you look at how that fight went with Taylor, it was very attritional. Both guys took a lot of risks. Both guys boxed at times, but for the most part it was a brawl. Both guys were chin-checked and were letting their hands go and showing some aggression and some ambition to really be the man in that ring, to out-muscle and outwork each other, whereas I don't think we're really going to see that from Catterall. I think Catterall could be aggressive in the fight if Taylor is able to use his reach, because he's the taller guy, the longer guy, and if he's able to use his reach to outpoint Catterall from the outside, we might see Catterall come forward a bit and be aggressive, because we've seen it before, like when he fought Tyrone McKenna, a good example. I use him as an example because he's a big, tall, rangy fighter, very limited, very easy to hit and easy to drag into a brawl, but physically he kind of resembles Taylor, just in terms of his size and his reach and whatnot. So it's an interesting fight to look at. And of course the Davis is an interesting one to look at because they both fought Davis. So yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting fight. What I don't know about the fight, now I'm pretty confident on who I think is going to win. I think Josh Taylor will probably win the fight. But what I'm not confident about is how the fight's going to go in terms of just what kind of fight is it going to be. Is it going to be a boxing match on the outside? Because if it is, then I could definitely see Davis, I could definitely see Catterall making it awkward and making it a very cagey and difficult fight to watch, because Josh Taylor's a guy who's very eager, a little bit over eager, some would say, to impress, and it's worked for him so far, but you never know, it might get him in trouble in the future. Whereas that's just his temperament, but Catterall's temperament, he has no problem sitting on the back foot and just waiting, so it could turn into that kind of fight. However, if Taylor's the one having more success from the outside, would Catterall try to break Taylor down and try to work him to the body and drag him into a fight just like he did to Tyron McKenna? Would he do that? I'm not too sure. So that's what I like about this fight, is even though I have a fairly clear idea of who I think is going to win, I don't know how it's going to look. I don't know what form the fight is going to take. You know, like I said, is it going to be a brawl? We know that Josh Taylor would want it to be a brawl because the dude just loves to fight, and he's been chin-checked multiple times against bigger punchers than Catterall, more proven punchers than Catterall, and he's come out on top. So you have to assume, or at least I assume, that if it's a brawl, Taylor will come out on top, that he'll win the fight. But, you know, boxing can surprise you like that sometimes. Sometimes you just never know. Sometimes some fighters fight to the level of their opposition. Maybe Catterall is one of those guys. I've seen nothing to indicate that so far. But, again, you just don't know. But, for me, the smart money on how I think this one will go, if it's a back foot boxing match, and if Catterall tries to just approach it the same way he did against Davis, then I think the most likely outcome is Taylor being a slightly better boxer on the outside and being taller. I think he just outpoints him. Plus the fact that it's going to be in Taylor's backyard, going to be in Glasgow, so Taylor's going to have a lot of support from the crowd, and yeah, he's the champion, so you have to really take the title from the champion. So I think in that sort of fight, Taylor on points is the smart money. I think Taylor on points is very likely. But if it turns into a brawl, if Catterall gets a little bit brave and decides to stand in front of Taylor, and if Taylor is really overly eager to put on a show for his home crowd, I think a stoppage is certainly possible. And the reason I say that is because we just don't know what Catterall's chin is like. You know, we know that he's a good boxer. We know he's got a good, like, double jab. You know, we know he works to the body quite well. We know he's a good southpaw who can box and brawl a bit, but we don't know what his chin and durability is going to be like at world level. And we just don't know enough about him to be confident that he can fight a hard 12 rounds against a guy like Josh Taylor, who's very attritional and has shown great work rate and is big for the weight, but despite being big for the weight, also moves very well and has very good stamina. So I think it's going to be a fascinating fight to watch. But like I said, I have a clear idea of who I think is going to win. I think Taylor's going to win the fight. I'm just not sure how he wins the fight. I'm not sure whether it's in an attritional manner or whether it's a more tactical manner of win. You know, I'm not sure exactly how the fight's going to go. I just have a clear idea of who I think is going to win, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's pretty much how I see the fight. Catterall's a good boxer. Like I said, he can box a bit and he can fight a bit. He's shown some different attributes throughout his career, and like I said, he's worked his way up through the domestic ranks, and he's come through unscathed so far and hasn't really looked poor in any fight. But he hasn't been thrown in at the deep end yet. You know, he hasn't had the type of challenges and more so mental challenges that Taylor has had, you know, fighting for a world title, fighting on the road in a big fight, you know, fighting Ramirez in front of his crowd in Vegas was a big test of character, and Josh came through it with flying colours. Is Catterall going to be able to go into Glasgow in front of a crowd who are cheering on his opponent, who's the champion, who's undefeated, who's bigger than him, who's more proven at world level? Is he going to be able to handle that mentally? Honestly, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure he will. I'm not saying that he can't. I'm just saying that I haven't seen anything from him so far to give me any confidence, to indicate to me that he can. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the fight. Hopefully I can be going to it. If I can get tickets, they might sell out quick, we'll see. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it, and I don't know what else to say. I don't know how much space I've got left on this. For anybody who's wondering, the area that I'm in at the moment, I'm in Paisley, and I don't know this area too well, but I've been through it a few times because I actually did used to work up here briefly when I used to be a landscaper. I used to cut gardens in some of these areas, but I never really explored the area myself. I only ever came here in a van with a squad basically to do my job, so I don't know the area too well, and that was years ago now. So yeah, it's quite a nice area though, some nice big houses. They've got a boat in the garden and that, cool. But yeah, expect more videos like this in the future. I'm going to be very busy in the upcoming weeks and months because, again, as I've already explained to some of you on here, I've made quite a lot of changes to my overall routine. I've been going out a lot more and exploring a lot more, and I've also been spending a lot less time on social media, spending a lot less time sitting around scratching my ass doing nothing. Basically every day I'm at least trying to go outside and do something, you know, socialise a bit more, spend a bit more time with family and stuff. So yeah, that's why I've not been as active on here. I did post a couple of videos this week, but yeah, other than that, not really been doing much, have I? But yeah, expect more of these types of videos where I'm just out and about, chilling and going about my day. And you never know what I might see. It's a really nice area. Like I say, I would imagine owning a house around here. That'd be awesome. Because it's kind of in the middle of nowhere a little bit. You know, it's not near any big city. It's I think the nearest town is Paisley, which is like straight down in that direction. And yeah. I don't know how good the audio is going to be because of these cars. That's the thing. It's been quite busy, this road, actually. It wasn't too busy last time I was here, but yeah, right up here is the hospital I'm about to go to. And I've no idea why they sent me to this hospital when I don't even live in Paisley. But yeah, for whatever reason, this is the hospital that the dentist referred me to, rather than just sending me one near where I live. But I guess it gives me an excuse to come out here and see the sights a little bit. So yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad. Anyway, yeah, since I'm nearly there and there's too much noise on this road, I'm going to stop this. So yeah, I'm going with Josh Taylor to win the fight. But whether or not he gets the stoppage, it really depends on how the fight plays out. It really depends on the strategies that both guys employ. Like, is Catterall going to be more defensive like he was in the Davis fight, or is he going to be more aggressive like he is in most of his fights? We'll see. Let me know what you guys think. Going with Josh Taylor for the win. Thanks for watching. God bless.